Italian reconnaissance aviation during the Second World War evolved under constant pressure from geography, limited industrial capacity, and rapidly changing operational demands. From short-range battlefield observation to long-range maritime and strategic reconnaissance, Italy relied on a diverse set of aircraft to gather intelligence across Europe, Africa, and the Mediterranean, shaping operational planning and naval coordination throughout the conflict. Army cooperation and early tactical reconnaissance. These aircraft originated from interwar Army cooperation doctrine and remained in frontline reconnaissance roles during the early war years despite growing obsolescence. Caproni Ca-111. The Caproni Ca-111 was developed to provide the Regia Aeronautica with a robust, long-endurance platform for colonial reconnaissance and Army cooperation. Designed for austere environments, it featured a high-wing layout and fixed landing gear optimized for rough airstrips. Powered by a single radial engine, the aircraft emphasized reliability over speed. During the war, Ca-111 units operated primarily in North Africa and East Africa, conducting visual reconnaissance, artillery spotting, and liaison duties. Its low speed and limited defensive armament made it vulnerable to modern fighters, restricting its use as enemy air superiority increased. The Ca-111 demonstrated the limitations of interwar reconnaissance concepts when confronted with modern air combat conditions. IMAM RO-37. The IMAM RO-37 was intended as a dedicated Army cooperation and short-range reconnaissance aircraft to replace earlier biplane designs. Although of mixed construction, it retained a biplane configuration to provide good low-speed handling and short-field performance. Equipped with forward-firing and defensive machine guns, it balanced observation duties with limited self-defense. The RO-37 saw widespread service during the early phases of WWII in the Mediterranean and African theaters, performing battlefield observation and tactical reconnaissance. As faster monoplanes entered service, the RO-37 increasingly suffered losses. Its operational career illustrated the rapid shift away from biplane reconnaissance aircraft during the war. IMAM RO-37 BIS. The RO-37 BIS represented an improved development of the original RO-37, incorporating a more powerful engine and minor aerodynamic refinements. The intent was to improve climb performance and survivability, while retaining the aircraft's established observation role. Operationally, the RO-37 BIS served alongside earlier variants, particularly in secondary theaters where modern opposition was limited. Despite improvements, it remained constrained by outdated structural concepts and limited speed. As a result, its service life was similarly curtailed as enemy fighter presence increased. The RO-37 BIs underscored the difficulty of incrementally modernizing fundamentally obsolete reconnaissance platforms. Caproni K309, Ghibli, the Caproni. K309 Ghibli was designed specifically for colonial policing and reconnaissance missions, emphasizing endurance and operational simplicity. Its twin-engine configuration offered improved reliability over remote terrain, while a glazed nose section provided good visibility for observation. During the war, the CA-309 was employed in North Africa and the Balkans for reconnaissance, liaison, and light transport roles. Its limited speed and light defensive armament restricted operations to lower-threat environments. Nevertheless, it proved useful for long-range patrols and communication tasks. The CA-309 demonstrated the utility of simple, multi-purpose reconnaissance aircraft in low-intensity theaters. Light and medium land reconnaissance aircraft. These aircraft combined reconnaissance duties with light bombing or attack capability, reflecting a shift toward more flexible tactical platforms. Caproni Ca-310, Libeccio. The Caproni Ca-310, Libeccio was developed as a light multi-role aircraft, capable of reconnaissance, bombing, and ground attack. Based on a commercial transport design, it featured twin engines and an enclosed crew compartment. In service, the Ca-310 was deployed for tactical reconnaissance and light strike missions in Europe and North Africa. However, its performance proved inadequate against modern fighters, and structural limitations affected operational reliability. Losses were significant when facing effective air defenses. The Ca-310 illustrated the risks of adapting civilian-derived airframes for frontline reconnaissance roles. Caproni Ca-311. The Ca-311 was an improved derivative of the Ca-310, intended to address performance and handling shortcomings. It retained the twin-engine configuration, but featured structural refinements and updated systems. Operational use mirrored that of its predecessor, including reconnaissance and light bombing assignments. Despite incremental improvements, it remained vulnerable in contested airspace. By mid-war, CA-311 units were increasingly relegated to secondary duties or withdrawn. The aircraft highlighted the limited impact of minor upgrades when fundamental design constraints remained unchanged. IMAM ROT 63. The IMAM ROT 63 was conceived as a modern monoplane replacement for earlier biplane reconnaissance aircraft. Designed for Army cooperation and tactical observation, it incorporated a low-wing layout and enclosed cockpit. Although promising on paper, development delays and handling issues hampered operational effectiveness. The ROT 63 saw limited frontline use, primarily for training and secondary reconnaissance duties. Its modest speed and stability issues reduced its operational value. The ROT 63 demonstrated the challenges Italy faced in transitioning reconnaissance doctrine to modern monoplane designs. CANSA FC-20. The CANSA FC-20 originated as a reconnaissance bomber concept with a heavy forward-firing armament intended for ground attack. Its twin-engine layout supported extended range and payload. In practice, the aircraft was used sparingly for reconnaissance and strike missions due to limited production and mixed performance results. Operational employment was restricted, and the type did not significantly influence reconnaissance operations. The FC-20 represented an experimental approach to combining reconnaissance and offensive firepower within a single platform. CANSA FC-20 BIS. The FC-20 BIS was a modified variant featuring adjustments to armament and internal layout to improve operational effectiveness. Despite these changes, it remained a niche aircraft with limited deployment. Reconnaissance units assigned the FC-20 BIS primarily operated in low-threat environments. Performance improvements were insufficient to justify broader adoption. The FC-20 BIS illustrated the diminishing returns of late-war modifications applied to underperforming reconnaissance designs. Strategic Land Reconnaissance, Bomber-Derived. Medium aircraft adapted for long-range photographic and route reconnaissance beyond the tactical battlefield. Fiat BR-20 Cicogna. The Fiat BR-20 Cicogna was Italy's first modern all-metal bomber and was adapted for strategic reconnaissance missions. Designed for long-range operations, it featured twin engines and an enclosed bomb bay suitable for camera installations. BR-20 aircraft conducted reconnaissance over the Mediterranean, France, and the Middle East. While range was adequate, defensive armament and speed lagged behind contemporary enemy fighters. Losses increased as opposition intensified. The BR-20 proved that bomber-derived reconnaissance platforms required strong defensive capabilities to survive in hostile airspace. Fiat BR-20M. The BR-20M was an improved variant incorporating structural strengthening and modified defensive armament. These changes aimed to enhance survivability during long-range missions. In reconnaissance roles, the BR-20M performed similarly to earlier versions, conducting strategic observation and photographic flights. Despite improvements, performance limitations persisted. Operational effectiveness remained constrained against modern interceptors. The BR-20M highlighted the difficulty of upgrading early war bomber designs to meet evolving reconnaissance threats. Fiat CR-25. The Fiat CR-25 was developed as a long-range reconnaissance and escort aircraft derived from a fighter lineage. Featuring twin engines and a streamlined airframe, it emphasized speed and endurance. In service, it undertook reconnaissance missions over the Mediterranean and North Africa. Limited production numbers restricted its overall impact, but operational performance was comparatively favorable. The CR-25 demonstrated the potential advantages of purpose-designed long-range reconnaissance aircraft over bomber conversions. CANT Z-1007 Alcione. The CANT Z-1007 Alcione was a three-engine medium bomber adapted for strategic reconnaissance. Its wooden construction reduced weight, while multiple engines provided redundancy. Reconnaissance missions included long-range patrols and photographic flights across the Mediterranean. Vulnerability to fire and maintenance challenges affected serviceability. Nevertheless, the aircraft contributed valuable intelligence during early and mid-war operations. The Z-127 showed how multi-engine bombers could be repurposed for reconnaissance when dedicated platforms were unavailable. CANT Z-127 BIS. The Z-7 BIS introduced aerodynamic refinements and improved power plants to enhance performance. In reconnaissance roles, it offered marginally better speed and range. Operational employment mirrored earlier variants, with missions focused on maritime and strategic observation. Continued vulnerability to interception limited effectiveness. The Z127BLS reflected incremental adaptation rather than a transformative improvement in reconnaissance capability. Maritime reconnaissance and coastal patrol aircraft dedicated to open sea scouting, convoy tracking, and naval reconnaissance across the Mediterranean. CANT Z501 Gabbiano. The CANT Z501 Gabbiano was a single-engine flying boat designed for long-endurance maritime reconnaissance. Its parasol wing configuration provided excellent visibility and stability over water. The aircraft conducted coastal patrols, convoy escort reconnaissance, and search missions throughout the Mediterranean. Slow speed and minimal defensive armament made it highly vulnerable, resulting in heavy losses. Despite this, its endurance allowed it to cover vast sea areas. The Z501 exemplified endurance-focused reconnaissance at the cost of survivability. CANT Z506B Airone. The Z506B Airone was a three-engine floatplane optimized for maritime reconnaissance and patrol. Its improved speed and payload capacity represented a significant advancement over earlier flying boats. Z56B units performed convoy scouting, search and rescue, and photographic reconnaissance. Better performance improved survivability, though. Losses remained substantial. The aircraft became one of Italy's most important maritime reconnaissance platforms. The Z506B demonstrated the value of speed and range in naval reconnaissance roles. Fiat RS-14. The Fiat RS-14 was a twin-engine flying boat designed specifically for maritime patrol and reconnaissance. Emphasizing stability and endurance, it featured defensive armament suitable for patrol missions. Operational use included convoy escort reconnaissance and coastal surveillance. While more modern than earlier designs, it still faced vulnerability to fighter attack. The RS-14 provided consistent service in a demanding maritime environment. Its operational history highlighted the persistent challenges of air defense over open water. Caproni CAT-314. The Caproni CAT-314 was a maritime patrol and reconnaissance aircraft adapted from a land-based design. Twin engines and extended range enabled patrol missions over contested sea lanes. The aircraft conducted reconnaissance, anti-shipping patrols, and escort duties. Performance limitations and vulnerability to interception reduced mission success rates. Nevertheless, it contributed to Italy's maritime surveillance network. The D314 illustrated adaptive use of existing designs to fill reconnaissance gaps. CANT Z515. The CANT Z515 was developed as a maritime reconnaissance and light bomber flying boat. Featuring twin engines and a robust hull, it aimed to replace older patrol aircraft. Operational deployment remained limited due to production constraints and competition from other types. Reconnaissance missions were conducted on a small scale. The Z515 had minimal strategic impact. It represented an attempt to modernize maritime reconnaissance late in the war. Shipboard Catapult-launched naval reconnaissance aircraft designed for battleship and cruiser-based reconnaissance and artillery spotting. IMAM RO-43. The IMAM RO-43 was a single-engine floatplane developed for catapult launch from major warships. Its design emphasized compact dimensions, stability, and good low-speed handling. Operational use included fleet scouting and gunnery spotting missions. While adequate in calm conditions, the aircraft suffered from limited performance and handling difficulties in rough seas. Losses and operational constraints reduced effectiveness. The RO-43 reflected the declining viability of ship-launched reconnaissance aircraft as air power evolved. Caproni CAT-316. The Caproni CAT-316 was introduced as a more modern replacement for earlier shipboard reconnaissance floatplanes. Featuring improved aerodynamics and power, it aimed to enhance range and reliability. Limited production and operational use curtailed its impact. Reconnaissance missions were conducted primarily in secondary roles. The CA-316 marked the final generation of Italian shipboard reconnaissance aircraft before the concept became obsolete. Multi-role, long-range aircraft used for recon tasking aircraft, whose primary combat role was supplemented by documented reconnaissance assignments. Savoia-Marchetti SM-79, Sparviero. The SM-79 Sparviero was designed as a fast-medium bomber but was frequently tasked with reconnaissance missions due to its range and speed. Its three-engine configuration provided redundancy and operational flexibility. Reconnaissance sorties included maritime patrols and strategic observation across the Mediterranean. While not optimized for reconnaissance, its performance allowed penetration of contested airspace. The SM-79 demonstrated how adaptable multi-role aircraft could supplement dedicated reconnaissance assets when required. Italian reconnaissance aviation in WW2 reflected adaptation under constraint, relying on a mix of interwar designs, modified bombers, and specialized maritime platforms. While endurance and range were often prioritized, limited speed and protection reduced survivability. These aircraft collectively demonstrated the critical importance of reconnaissance, while revealing the cost of delayed modernization and fragmented development in sustained aerial intelligence operations.